At the beginning of the story, our hero tells us that no one actually knows when dungeons first started appearing in our world. However, inside those dungeons, there were many valuable resources that could not be found anywhere else. Along with those resources, there were also many monsters living inside the dungeons. But to deal with those monsters, special people called players were born. The players have the full responsibility to clear the dungeons and eliminate all the monsters inside them. But apart from all that, I am just a small miner who enters these dungeons after the players have already eliminated all the monsters. My name is Jiang. While continuing my mining work, I keep explaining that mining inside these dungeons is very hard work, but the payout I receive is actually pretty good. And because of this mining work, the muscles in my body are also increasing. Suddenly, an old man hits me on the head and starts shouting, saying, "Hey, Jiang, I've been calling you for so long. How dare you ignore me?" Jiang looks at the man in front of him and says, "Lovesong, why are you hitting me for no reason even here? You know this dungeon is huge. Why are you even looking for me here?" The man in front of him, Uncle Fan, replies, "Do you know why I was looking for you? I was looking for you because I was about to give you your payout." Hearing that, Jiang quickly grabs his salary and says, "Thank you, Uncle Fan." After that, Uncle Fan comes closer to Jiang and says, Hey, it's not such a big deal. If you're this thankful to me, then sometime you should come and buy me a bottle of beer after work." But Jiang directly refuses him. After that, Uncle Fan begins speaking again and says, "I know that you've been saving a lot of money. Don't tell me you're thinking about buying an awakening stone. If that's what you're planning, then I want to give you a piece of advice. You know that awakening stones are extremely expensive. Even a low-rank stone costs a huge amount of money. And you also know that if you become a player, you'll have to face extremely dangerous situations." Uncle Fan then continues and says, "Let me tell you something. My nephew also desperately wanted to become a player. He kept insisting again and again. After a lot of pressure, his parents gathered all their savings and finally bought him a low-rank awakening stone. That kid awakened and actually became a player. He was extremely excited and entered a dungeon for the first time. But do you know what happened? He only entered one dungeon in his entire life. After that, he never went again. During his first dungeon run, he almost lost his life. He got so scared that he never stepped into another dungeon again." Jiang looks behind and starts thinking to himself that the core of these dungeons is actually those awakening stones. They are the key point that can turn a normal person into a player. And if someone awakens as a player, there are mainly three categories. The first is warrior, the second is ranger, and the third is magic user. Since the very beginning, these dungeons have belonged to big guilds and powerful organizations. Because of that, for a normal human, it becomes extremely difficult to even find an awakening stone, and even the lowest rank stones are incredibly expensive and rarely available on the market. While Jiang is thinking about all this, Uncle Fan continues speaking and says, "Just look at that kid. His parents spent all their savings on him, and now he doesn't even work as a player anymore. He doesn't go into dungeons. He just sits at home." But Jiang replies to Uncle Fan saying, "Uncle Fan, you also know that I'm not the kind of person who wants to depend on my parents. My sister is about to go to university soon, and for my parents, it's becoming harder and harder to gather money for everything. If I at least become a low-rank player, I will still earn more money than what I'm earning right now." At that moment, someone overhears their conversation and suddenly interrupts them. He says, "Wow, I think I just heard the biggest joke inside this cave. You, a piece of trash, are dreaming of becoming a player." Hearing this, Jiang becomes a little angry and shouts at him, "What did you just say?" But Uncle Fan, standing beside him, quickly says, "Calm down. That man is a client from the Songjin Guild." Meanwhile, the man from the Songjin Guild continues speaking. He looks at Jiang and says, "Do you really think I'm wrong? Trash like you who works as a miner is hoping to become a player? Let me tell you something. How many years would a piece of trash like you need to keep mining before you can even afford an awakening stone? People like you should know your place and spend your entire life doing mining work." After hearing all of this, Jiang becomes extremely angry, but for now he controls himself. But the man walks closer to him just to provoke him even more and says, "You should learn to face reality. You shouldn't dream so big. And if you're still not convinced, I can even show you the gap between us." At that moment, Uncle Fan, who is standing on the side, watches the situation carefully. Uncle Fan starts handling the situation. He has already stepped in front of Jiang and tells the man standing there, "Look, we're just people from a small mining squad. We absolutely cannot fight someone like you who is a client of a large guild." The man standing in front of them simply stares at both of them. After a moment, he says, "This is actually pretty boring. I thought I had finally found something interesting inside this cave." After saying that, he begins walking away. While leaving, he says, "You pieces of trash who only know how to mine. Our guild hires people like you for one reason only, so you can do mining work. You're not paid to stand around and chat, so just do your job." Uncle Fan quickly replies, "All right." The man leaves. As soon as he leaves, Uncle Fan relaxes a little and says to Jiang, "Finally, that guy is gone. Honestly, that bastard is someone named Song Jin from the Song Jin Guild. To be honest, he was basically born with a silver spoon in his mouth. His background is extremely rich. But besides that, he also has incredible abilities. He's actually an A-rank player. If you had attacked him first and he killed you in self-defense, it wouldn't even be considered a crime." Just then, we're shown that the core of the dungeon suddenly develops a crack. The dungeon core is slightly damaged. Uncle Fan then tells Jiang, "Kid, don't take what he said too seriously. Young people should at least keep some dreams in their hearts." But Jiang replies calmly, "Uncle Fan, you really don't need to worry about me. Things like that don't affect me at all." However, at that very moment, a huge commotion starts happening around them. Loud rumbling sounds begin echoing through the cave, and large rocks start falling everywhere. All the miners immediately begin running away while shouting, "The dungeon is collapsing! Everyone run to the exit! Save yourselves!" Jiang also starts running toward the exit along with Uncle Fan. But suddenly, Jiang looks ahead and shouts, "Wait! What is this? The size of the gate is getting smaller." Uncle Fan replies, "Yes, the dungeon's awakening stone must have been cracked or been damaged. That's why the dungeon is collapsing. We need to reach the exit as fast as possible." But at that exact moment, a huge rock suddenly falls directly onto Uncle Fan. Jiang panics and says, "Uncle Fan, don't worry about me. I'll get you out of here as quickly as possible." He desperately tries to move the massive rock that fell on Uncle Fan, but no matter how hard he tries, he cannot move it. Uncle Fan then says to Jiang, "Jiang, don't worry about me. You need to leave right now. If you don't leave immediately, the gate will close and you won't be able to escape either." Jiang starts crying and says, "Uncle Fan, please don't say that. I will get you out of here no matter what. We will leave this place together. Both of us will go outside together." At that moment, someone suddenly appears behind Jiang. It's Song. He looks at the scene and mockingly says, "Wow, look at this. A piece of trash having its emotional moment. What a touching scene." Jiang sees him and immediately grabs his arm while begging, "Please, please save him. Please save Uncle Fan. You're a player, right? You must be able to do something." But Song shakes Jiang's hand away and coldly says, "You really don't understand this situation here. Have you ever seen someone help a piece of trash like you? If I'm being honest, this is simply your fate." After saying that, Song starts walking toward the exit gate. Seeing this, Jiang becomes extremely furious. He rushes forward and tries to punch him. But Song already finds an opening. He immediately launches his own attack at Jiang. While striking him, Song says, "You're just trash, and I've already shown you the gap between the two of us." The attack severely injures Jiang. Meanwhile, Song continues walking toward the exit. As he leaves, he says to Jiang, "All right then, die slowly and quietly here." Song exits the dungeon. The exit gate slowly begins to close. Soon, the gate completely shuts. Jiang desperately shouts, "Wait, wait, someone help me." But he's now completely alone inside the collapsing dungeon. Just like that, Jiang is left behind inside the dungeon by himself. तभी scene shift होता है. Now the scene moves to Jiang's home. We see Jiang's sister sitting comfortably and watching television. While watching, she says to their mother, "Mom, why hasn't Jiang come home yet?" Their mother replies, "You should address your brother respectfully as older brother. Don't just call him by his name like that. How many times do I have to tell you? And besides, today is his payday. He'll probably bring some snacks or food with the money he gets." For now, we'll call the girl Shailesia. Shailesia continues lying down while watching television. But suddenly, a news anchor appears on the TV and announces breaking news. The anchor says, "We have breaking news today. A dungeon has collapsed. The dungeon that collapsed today belonged to the Songjin Guild. At the time of the collapse, a mining team was actively working inside the dungeon. The name of that team was the Carden Mining Team, and the collapse happened while the mining operation was still ongoing." Because of the dungeon collapse, many members of the mining team were severely injured and some of them even died. As soon as Shailesia hears this news on television, she quickly shouts to her mother, "Mom, tell me quickly, what was the name of that mining team?" But before answering, her mother scolds her and says, "Why are you calling your brother by his name again? You should call him Big Brother." However, Shailesia urgently says, "Mom, please come here quickly." Her mother walks over to the television and asks, "Why are you acting so shocked?" Then she says, "Your brother's team is called the Four Dun Mining Team." As soon as she says that, Shailesia panics and says, "Mom, something must have happened to Big Brother." At that moment, the news anchor on TV continues explaining. The mining team called Four Dun had a total of 18 members. Many of them were severely injured and 2 members have died. After hearing this news, Shailesia's mother becomes extremely shocked and worried. She nervously says, "What? Jiang's mining team? This happened to them?" Just then, someone knocks at the door. They quickly rush to open it. When the door opens, Jiang is standing there. Jiang is not in good condition at all, but he still says to his mother, "Mum, please forgive me." Before he can say anything else, his mother immediately hugs him tightly while crying and says, "The fact that you came back home safe, that's all that matters to me. You being alive is the most important thing." After that moment, the scene shifts again. Tabhi scene shift hota hai. Now we are shown what actually happened inside the dungeon. Jiang is lying there, barely alive. While dying, he weakly says, "My entire body hurts so much. My ribs are hurting badly, which probably means they're completely broken. I've already lost a lot of blood. My consciousness is fading. I never imagined that I would die in a place like this." After that, he begins thinking about his family. He thinks about his aunt and about his sister Shailesia. After thinking about them, Jiang suddenly becomes determined and shouts, "No, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I want to live." At that exact moment, beside Jiang lies the cracked awakening stone of the dungeon. The broken stone lightly touches Jiang's hand. Suddenly, the stone activates and begins glowing. A notification appears in front of Jiang. The absolute system has been activated. The system then tells him that his remaining lifespan is extremely low. "You will die in 30 seconds. Then another message appears. "Do you want to become the king of darkness?" 2 options appear. Yes, no. Jiang is completely confused because he has no idea what is happening. However, the countdown timer keeps decreasing. 30 seconds, 29, 28. Seeing the time running out, Jiang clenches his teeth and says, "No matter what happens, whatever this is, I just need to survive." He immediately presses the yes button. The moment he presses it, another notification appears. "Congratulations, you have now become the king of darkness." After that, darkness surrounds everything. Jiang's body begins glowing. The glow becomes brighter and brighter and brighter. Then everything fades. तभी scene shift होता है. Now the scene moves to Jiang's house. Morning has arrived. Jiang wakes up and looks at a strange panel floating in front of him. Looking at it, he says, "What exactly is this thing?" He tries to remember what happened and says, "The last thing I remember is seeing a golden light and then I suddenly appeared outside my house. Was that magic? But it couldn't have been magic. I've never heard of teleportation magic like that." Then he thinks for a moment and says, "Honestly, this feels more like a game system." At that moment, a notification appears on the panel. To level up, you must collect points. You currently have no skills. The panel then shows his stats. Agility, 10. Mental spirit, 18. Dexterity, 12. Strength, 10. Jiang looks at the panel carefully and says, I think I understand what these attribute points mean. I can increase my attributes with them. That means I can increase warrior type abilities, ranger type abilities, and even magic user abilities. He becomes excited and says, if I can increase these stats, that means I can become a full-time player. But then he notices that leveling up requires more points. However, he still doesn't understand what these points actually represent. At that moment, outside his room, his sister Shalesia is getting ready and shouting loudly. Meanwhile, Jiang looks at his body and notices something strange. He says, most of my injuries have already healed. This must be because of that system. Just then, Shalesia suddenly walks straight into his room. She says, how long are you planning to sleep? Wake up already. Jiang immediately complains and says, Shalesia, shouldn't you knock before entering someone's room? What if I was doing something that you shouldn't see? Shalesia rolls her eyes and replies, how am I supposed to know whether you're doing something weird in here or not? Anyway, if you're completely fine now, just come downstairs and eat your breakfast. Jiang quickly shouts back, I would never do something like that. Then Jiang suddenly asks her, Shalesia, can you see this panel in front of me? But Shalesia looks at him in confusion.
After looking over there, Shalesia looks at Jiang and says, what happened to you? Didn't you get a serious injury on your head yesterday? Did it hit you too hard or something? Why are you talking like a crazy person? After hearing that, Jiang understands that the panel in front of him is something only he can see. No one else can see it. Just then, Shalesia continues speaking and says, Jiang, today, Mom has a lot of work to do, so she'll be very busy. Also, some of my friends are coming over today, so you should leave the house for now. And honestly, you don't need to keep doing such dangerous work in the future. She then continues, as for my university fees, you don't have to worry about that. I've already submitted a request for a student loan for my university. After that, I'll work part-time and repay the money slowly. After hearing this, Jiang looks at Shalesia and becomes a little happy. With a smile, he says, oh really? So you're actually worried about me now? Shalesia replies, yeah, you can say that I'm worried about you, because if you die in the future, then who is going to earn money for me to spend? Jiang sighs and says, you're such a demon. You're definitely not a cute little sister. Just then, someone knocks on the door of their house. Shalesia assumes that her friends have arrived. She quickly goes to open the door and says while opening it, why did you guys come so early? I didn't invite you that early. But when she opens the door, she sees two strange men standing there. One of them looks at Shalesia and says, little girl, there's no need for you to worry. We're not bad people, but let me tell you something. Your father's name is Yang, right? He continues, your father took a loan from our agency a long time ago. You can even see the receipt if you want. 3 years ago, your father took a loan of 5 lakh rupees from us. Now 3 years have already passed, and after adding all the interest, your total loan has become 15 lakh rupees. Then he says coldly, so you should repay it quickly. Haven't you heard the saying, the debts of parents must be paid by their children? Hearing this, Shalesia immediately shouts angrily, no! If my father borrowed money from you, then you should go directly to him. That has nothing to do with us. We don't know anything about this. The man replies, honestly, I actually feel sorry for you. Your family has a man who loves gambling so much that he borrowed money from everywhere, and in the end, he ran away. He left you and your mother behind and disappeared. Then he says again, but like I told you before, there's a saying, the debts of parents must be paid by their children. At that moment, he suddenly grabs Shalesia's hand. Shalesia struggles and says, what are you planning to do to me? The man replies calmly, of course your father borrowed money from us. That part is very clear. And let me tell you something else. Our agency isn't a charity that just gives away money for free. He then continues, so what we're going to do is simple. We'll take you with us. You'll work and earn money for us, and that money will be used to repay the debt. Shalesia immediately shouts, no, I'm not going anywhere with you. She screams loudly, please help, someone help me. These people are trying to kidnap me. At that moment, another man who came with him suddenly slaps Shalesia. He says to his partner, "I already told you we should just drag her away. We shouldn't have tried to settle this by talking in the first place." The second man replies, "I told you to take it easy. If you hit her face too much and leave marks, we won't be able to sell her for a high price." Then he looks at Shalicia and says, "Little girl, you can see that this man is very impatient, so if you quietly come with us, nothing bad will happen to you for now." Just then, Jiang finally arrives there. He shouts at the two men, "What do you two think you're doing here?" Jiang had been taking a shower, so there is still soap on his head. When the two men see Jiang, they immediately start laughing. The man who slapped Shalicia is named Yu Wang. From now on, we'll call him Yu Wang. Yu Wang laughs loudly and says, "Look at this guy. He looks so weak. Honestly, I think he watched too many movies and now he's trying to act like a hero." But suddenly, Jiang walks straight toward him and slaps Yu Wang across the face. Everyone is shocked for a moment. However, the slap doesn't do much damage. Yu Wang immediately grabs Jiang's hand tightly. Jiang tries to pull his hand away, but he can't escape his grip. Seeing this, Jiang tries to calm himself and says, "I think we shouldn't solve this problem with violence. Maybe we should sit down and talk about this peacefully." But before he can finish speaking, Yu Wang suddenly kicks Jiang in the stomach. The force of the kick sends Jiang flying backwards. Shalicia screams, "What are you people doing?" And Jiang lies there on the ground. Jiang, still lying on the ground, tells Shalicia in a weak voice, "Don't worry, I'm completely fine here." The man standing nearby hears Jiang call her his sister. After hearing that, he smirks and says, "Honestly, I expected nothing less from your family. Your whole family is filled with trash." He then continues, "Let me introduce you properly. The guy standing next to me is named Yu Wang. He's actually an underground boxer. If you were inside a ring with him, he could kill you with a single punch." At that moment, Yu Wang grabs Shalicia by her hair and begins dragging her away, planning to take her with them. Jiang, still lying on the ground, shouts desperately, "Let her go! Let her go!" But the other man looks at Jiang and says, "If you want your sister to remain safe, then you should repay the money you owe us. If you pay quickly, you can redeem your sister from us. But if you delay too much, then soon the entire city will be watching your sister's erotic videos everywhere." At that moment, Jiang suddenly speaks to the system in his mind. "System, whatever this thing is, I'm telling you right now, I have 20 attribute points. Put all of them into my strength." Immediately, his strength increases dramatically. His strength stat jumps all the way to 30. Meanwhile, Yu Wang and the other man start walking away while dragging Shalicia. Suddenly, Jiang shouts loudly, "Let her go!" When the two men turn back, Yu Wang says mockingly, "Does this guy not understand human language?" But Jiang, now filled with rage, shouts again, "Let her go!" Seeing Jiang's anger, Yu Wang also becomes irritated. He throws Shalicia aside and prepares to fight. He cracks his knuckles and says, "Looks like today someone's bones are going to get broken." The other man warns him, "Yu Wang, control your strength this time. Don't accidentally kill someone again. Last time you already killed a guy." Yu Wang grins and looks at Jiang, saying, "All right then, let's play a little." Jiang suddenly rushes toward Yu Wang at full speed. At that moment, we see a brief flashback. In the flashback, we see Shalicia being bullied by several kids. Young Jiang picks up a stick and runs toward those kids to protect her. He fights them and scares them away. After that, Shalicia runs towards Jiang and says worriedly, "Look at you, you're hurt so badly." But Jiang smiles and says, "Don't worry about me, I'm fine. After today, none of them will ever dare to bully you again." The flashback ends. We return to the present. Jiang is already charging toward Yu Wang at full speed. This time, Jiang's punch connects directly with Yu Wang's face. The punch lands with tremendous force. Shalicia and the other man are both completely shocked. Yu Wang, after taking that single punch, is instantly knocked out. He collapses unconscious after just one hit. Seeing this, Jiang says in disbelief,
Just 20 attribute points and the power increased this much? The other man, whose name is Yellow, watches in shock. He says, "How is this even possible? That kid was so weak before. Was he just pretending last time?" At that moment, Jiang receives a notification. You have been awarded 10 points. Jiang thinks to himself, so this is how I get points, by defeating people. Meanwhile, Yellow slowly tries to sneak away while Jiang is distracted, but Jiang notices him. He says, "Oh right, I almost forgot about you." Jiang walks toward him, preparing to punch him, but immediately Yellow drops to his knees. He begs desperately, "Please forgive me, don't hit me." Seeing this, Jiang mockingly says, "What happened? Aren't you supposed to be a gangster?" Yellow quickly explains, "I was just doing my job. I was hired by the loan office to collect money from you. You can check the receipt, it's official. Your father took that loan. We were just sent here to collect it. Even if you defeat us today, the loan office will just send other people after you. This situation won't end like this." After hearing this, Jiang thinks for a moment. He realizes that the man is actually right. This problem cannot be solved so easily. Jiang then asks him, "All right, then tell me where your main office is and what is your boss's name?" Yellow answers immediately, "Our loan office is inside Mong Market and our boss's name is Mong." Then nervously asks, "If you don't need anything else from me, can I leave now?" Jiang suddenly remembers something and says, "Oh right, how could I forget? You grabbed my sister's hand with your right hand." Hearing this, Yellow becomes terrified. He begs again, "Please forgive me, I made a mistake." But Jiang suddenly punches his hand with full force. After that, the entire situation finally becomes calm. Later, Jiang is sitting peacefully inside his room. He looks at the system pail in front of him and says, "Now I understand how this attribute system works. I can distribute my attribute points however I want."
Jiang looks at the system panel and says, "Even after leveling up once, I only received 2 attribute points." He lies down on the bed looking a little frustrated and says, "If I had known earlier that attribute points were this important, I wouldn't have spent all of them on strength at once." He continues thinking, "My mental spirit is already quite high, so agility doesn't really affect me that much. That's fine." Then he says, "Let me check what reward I received from leveling up." He opens the level up reward. A small flash of light appears and he receives a new skill. When he reads the description of the skill, it says that the skill is called weakening. The description explains that once activated, his body will give off an aura that makes other people feel that he is extremely weak. After reading that, Jiang says disappointedly, "I thought this would be a really powerful skill. But who would have known it would be this useless? People will just think I'm weak. What kind of skill is this?" Just then, Shelicia shouts loudly from outside his room, "Jiang, I'm going to the library with my friends." Jiang replies, "All right, go carefully and stay safe." After she leaves, Jiang says to himself, "All right, I also have something I need to settle." Now the scene moves to the loan office. Inside the office, the boss of the loan collectors, Mang, is sitting there. Mang angrily looks at Yellow and says, "So you went to collect the loan, but you came back without collecting anything, and you were beaten by a kid." Mang starts shouting loudly, "Tell me every single detail right now." Yellow nervously explains, "That kid pretended to be weak at first. Yuan punched him once and badly injured him. But after that, the kid suddenly stood up, and with just one punch, he knocked Yuan out. He shows his injured hand and says, 'You can see my hand,' and says, 'You can see my hand.' Mang frowns and says, 'Didn't you say that Yuang has been the underground boxing champion for years? How could he lose to a kid in one punch?' Yellow replies, 'That kid is definitely strong. In my opinion, he must be a player.' Mang says, 'A player.' Behind them, there's another man who's actually a player. Mang asks him, 'What do you think? Could that kid really be a player?' The player replies, 'From what they are describing, the kid is definitely strong, but I don't think he awakened as a player very long ago.' Just then someone enters the room and says, 'Boss, a member of the Yifei family wants to meet you.' The Yifei family is a powerful family. Mang becomes slightly surprised, but then says calmly, 'That kid had the courage to beat my men, and now he has the courage to come to my office himself. Fine. Fine,
come to my
bring him
office
in.
himself.
Then Mang
Fine,
looks at
bring him
Yellow
in.
and angrily
Then
says,
Mang looks at
not
Yellow
only
and
did you
angrily
fail to
says,
collect my
not
money,
only did
you
you
also
fail to
brought
collect my
humiliation
money,
to
you
me.
also brought
Yellow quickly
humiliation
says,
to me.
that kid
Yellow
forced me to
quickly
bring him
says,
here.
that kid
Mang
forced me
replies
to bring him
coldly,
here.
that's
Mang
enough.
replies
I'll deal
coldly,
with your
that's
punishment
enough.
later.
I'll deal
At
with your
that moment,
punishment later.
Jiang enters
At
Mang's
that
office.
moment, Jiang
He calmly
enters
says,
Mang's office.
so which
He
one of you
calmly
is
says,
Mang?
so
Mang
which one
looks
of
at
you
him
is
and
Mang?
says, so you're
Mang
the one
looks
who
at him
beat
and
my
says,
men.
so you're the one
Jiang
who
quickly
beat my
waves
men.
his hands and says,
Jiang
no,
quickly
no,
waves his
things
hands
just
and
got a
says,
little
no,
emotional there.
things just got a
Everything
little
happened
emotional
suddenly,
there.
but please
Everything
don't take it
happened
personally.
suddenly, but please
Mang
don't take it
watches him
personally.
carefully. He
Mang
thinks to
watches him
himself that the
carefully.
boy in
He
front of
thinks
him
to
looks
himself that
extremely
the boy in
weak.
front of him
At
looks
that moment,
extremely weak.
Jiang's
At
weakening
that
skill is
moment,
active, which is
Jiang's
why he
weakening
appears
skill
so
is active,
fragile.
which is why he
Mang
appears so
smiles
fragile.
slightly and says,
Mang
my
smiles
men are
slightly
usually
and
very
says,
good at
my
collecting
men are
loans,
usually
but
very good at
sometimes these
collecting
situations
loans.
happen.
But sometimes
That's not
these
a big issue.
situations happen.
Then he
That's
says,
not a big
but
issue.
I'm sure you didn't
Then
come
he
here
says,
without a
but I'm
reason.
sure you didn't come
Jiang
here
nods
without
and
a
says,
reason.
yes,
Jiang
I
nods
actually
and
came
says,
here for a
yes,
reason.
I
I
actually
want to
came here
extend
for
the
a reason.
repayment date
I
of the
want to
loan.
extend the
Mang
repayment date
laughs
of the loan.
slightly and says,
Mang
oh,
laughs
so that's
slightly
what
and
you want.
says, oh,
That's
so
not such a
that's
big
what you
request.
want.
I can
That's
do
not
that for
such a
you.
big request.
Hearing
I can
this,
do that
Jiang
for you.
becomes happy.
Hearing
But
this,
Mang
Jiang
suddenly
becomes
adds,
happy.
however,
But Mang
I have
suddenly
one
adds,
condition.
however,
He
I
points
have
toward
one
a fighter
condition.
standing
He
nearby
points
and
toward a
says,
fighter
you will
standing
have to
nearby
fight
and
against
says,
him.
you will have
Mang
to fight
continues,
against him.
if you win
Mang
against him,
continues,
I'll
if you
personally
win
extend
against
the
him,
deadline
I'll
of your loan
personally
repayment.
extend the
But if
deadline
you
of your loan
lose,
repayment.
then your loan
But if you
deadline will
lose,
not be
then your
extended
loan
at all.
deadline will not be
Jiang
extended
becomes
at
nervous
all.
and says,
Jiang
why do we
becomes
have to do
nervous and
this?
says,
Isn't
why
there
do we
another
have
way
to
to
do
settle this matter?
Isn't there
Do
another
we
way
really
to
have
settle
to
this
use
matter?
violence?
Do we really
At
have
that
to use
moment,
violence?
Mang looks at him
At
with a
that
cold
moment,
expression.
Mang looks at him with a cold expression.
Mang looks at Jiang and says, you already beat my men, so I have to get payback from you. That's why I'm giving you this option. He continues coldly. To be honest, you're not even in a position where you can negotiate any conditions with me. You have only two choices. Either accept this fight and play along properly, or leave this place right now and immediately repay all the money you owe me. After hearing this, Jiang replies, all right then, so if I defeat this man, you'll talk about extending the repayment date of my loan, right? Mang nods and says, yes, if you manage to defeat him, then we'll continue our discussion. At that moment, the fighter steps forward and says, before we start, let me remind you of something. I'm a true player. He then adds, your eyes look sharp, but the aura coming from your body feels extremely weak. As soon as he says that, he suddenly rushes toward Jiang at incredible speed. Jiang watches him and thinks, he's unbelievably fast. I need to block his attack. But before he can react, the fighter has already moved behind him. Jiang fails to react in time. The fighter immediately kicks Jiang in the face. The impact sends Jiang flying several meters away. Even after getting hit, Jiang slowly stands back up and says, my luck is really terrible. I ended up fighting a speed-type player. The fighter continues attacking Jiang repeatedly with his overwhelming speed. While attacking, he mockingly says, why aren't you fighting back? What's wrong? Is it because you can't match my speed? He keeps taunting, should I slow down to give you a handicap, or should I just keep using you like a punching bag? He keeps hitting Jiang again and again. Meanwhile, Mang stands on the side watching everything. He thinks to himself, is this kid really that weak? If he's this weak, then how did he defeat Yu Wang earlier? After a while, the fighter finally stops attacking. Jiang is breathing heavily, barely able to stand. The fighter looks at him and says, what happened? Is that all you've got? He continues, I heard you defeated Yu Wang with a single punch, but if things keep going like this, you won't be able to accomplish the goal you came here for. Then he studies Jiang carefully and says, from what I can tell, you probably haven't been a player very long. When Jiang hears that, he becomes silent. His reaction already gives the fighter the answer. The fighter smirks and says, your reaction told me everything. Then he adds, since I'm your senior as a player, let me give you some advice. You should never reveal your weaknesses and mistakes to your opponent.
After saying that, he immediately rushes toward Jiang again, preparing to launch another attack. Seeing him rushing forward, Jiang simply smiles slightly. Jiang has a bottle in his hand, and he suddenly throws it toward the fighter. The fighter easily catches the bottle, but he doesn't understand why Jiang threw it at him in the first place. He looks at Jiang and says, "Are you trying to use such cheap tricks on me? You already know that won't work." At that moment, the bottle suddenly explodes in his hand. The fighter gets slightly injured from the blast. Meanwhile, Jiang stands at a distance, smiling calmly. Mang, who's watching from the side, becomes slightly surprised and says, "What? Does that mean this kid is a magician? Did he just create an explosion using fire magic?" Just then, Jiang rushes toward the fighter. Mang notices Jiang's movement and shouts, "Look at that kid's speed!" However, because of the smoke, a lot of smoke has filled the area. Taking advantage of the smoke, Jiang quickly throws a punch at the fighter. The fighter manages to stabilize himself after getting hit. Jiang looks at him and says, "So, tell me, what is your real profession?" Jiang asked that because of how fast the fighter had been moving. But the fighter replies, "Did you forget what I just taught you? You should never reveal your secrets to others." After saying that, he quickly rushes toward Jiang again. He says confidently, "Do you really think your dirty little tricks can defeat me?" Jiang throws another bottle toward him. The fighter catches the bottle again, remembering the previous explosion. But this time, the bottle doesn't explode. Instead, the explosive bottle rolls away and lands near Mang. Mang picks up the bottle and examines it carefully. He mutters, "There's something inside this bottle. What is it? Is it some kind of gold element?" But then he realizes that it's just something the kid prepared. Meanwhile, the fighter continues moving toward Jiang. He laughs and says, "Once I get close to you, you won't be able to do anything except beg for mercy." At that moment, the fighter senses that Jiang might try the same trick again. Suddenly, Jiang appears behind him. This time, Jiang throws several bottles at once. All the bottles directly hit the fighter. The repeated explosions cause heavy damage. Jiang prepares to throw another punch and says, "Senior, I also want to tell you something. If you see someone who looks weak, you shouldn't look down on them too much. You shouldn't underestimate them." Right after saying that, Jiang throws a powerful punch that sends the fighter flying. Jiang has finally won the match. Immediately, a notification appears. "You have received 40 points. You have reached level 3. Mang watches Jiang's victory with complete shock. Jiang then says, "Well, Mang, if I'm being honest, my fighter lost this match, but the show you put on was actually very impressive." Jiang quickly replies, No, it's nothing like that. I just got lucky and managed to win against him. There's no need to exaggerate it." Meanwhile, Mang picks up one of the bottles from the ground and asks Jiang, "I know you used some kind of trick, but tell me something. What metal did you put inside this bottle to make it explode?" Jiang calmly replies, "It wasn't anything special. I just put sodium inside the bottle." Mang looks surprised. Then he says, "Don't you know that sodium reacts violently when it comes into contact with water? Even small children know that. That's basic chemistry." Jiang explains, "When I was coming to your office, I bought 6 bottles of water on the way." But Mang interrupts him and says, "Wait, if you bought 6 bottles, I never saw you put sodium inside them, and sodium reacts immediately with water, so how were you able to control when the explosion happened?" Jiang smiles and explains, "It was simple. I removed half of the water from the bottles. Then I attached the sodium piece inside the bottle cap. When the bottle moves and the water level touches the sodium, it reacts and creates the explosion. The actual trick was simple, but it caused very effective damage." Because of the explosion, a lot of smoke spread everywhere. Because of that smoke, people began to think that Jiang was actually a magician who had used some kind of movie-like magic. In reality, it was just a trick he used to deceive everyone. The smoke gave Jiang the perfect opportunity to launch surprise attacks from different directions. After listening to Jiang's explanation, Mang says, "So that's how it happened. But tell me something, where did you even get sodium metal from? Sodium isn't something you can easily find everywhere." Jiang calmly replies, "Wow, Mang, you really ask a lot of questions. But I'll tell you. Your main office is inside Yuwang Market, right? And you know exactly what kind of place that market is. After hearing that, Mang becomes a little surprised and thinks to himself, this kid planned everything from the beginning. Mang then says to Jiang, "Kid, thanks to you, I learned some very interesting information today. To be honest, you're one of the few people who've actually managed to surprise me." Jiang smiles and says, "Oh, it wasn't a big deal." Mang continues speaking. "So, when you entered my office earlier, you were acting extremely weak on purpose so that everyone would underestimate you." Jiang thinks to himself that this wasn't exactly the case, because his weakening skill is always active, which naturally makes him appear weak. Mang continues, "Because everyone underestimated you, you got the perfect opportunity to execute your plan. Honestly, if that fighter hadn't fallen for your trick, you probably wouldn't have been able to defeat him with your current abilities." Then he adds, "At first, it seemed like you came here just to negotiate, but in reality, you were already fully prepared for a fight." Jiang replies calmly, "Mang, to be honest, I also wanted to settle everything peacefully, but I'm not stupid enough to come to a place like this without preparing. I knew that after beating your men, you wouldn't let me leave so easily." After hearing this, Mang smiles and says, "Look at you. You're still so young, yet you're extremely clever." He continues, "Forget all that. You'll definitely become a very powerful player in the future. I'm actually looking forward to seeing how strong you become." After that, Jiang says, "Mang, now let's talk about the loan." Mang agrees and says, "All right then, let's discuss the debt." The two of them start negotiating. Suddenly, Jiang shouts, "Wait, are you saying you're only giving me 3 days to repay 3.4 million rupees? Mang looks at him calmly and says, "Kid, why are you shouting? I'm standing right here. And besides, you're a player now. For someone like you, earning 3.4 million rupees in 3 days shouldn't be impossible." Jiang replies nervously, "But I'm only a newly awakened player. I don't even have the qualifications to enter most dungeons yet." Mang shrugs and says, "That's not my problem." Then he adds, "The player ranking assessments are starting this Monday. That's your opportunity. You need to grab it." After saying that, Mang hands Jiang a card and says, "Take this. When you collect the money, contact me." He continues, "Our agency is very good at collecting information. You already know we deal with loans." After that, Jiang leaves the office. As soon as Jiang leaves, Yellow walks in and asks Mang, "Boss, are you sure it's okay to just let that kid go like this?" Mang replies calmly, "Don't worry, that kid will definitely repay the money on time. In just a short moment today, I saw something unbelievable in him." Now we see Jiang returning home. His mother says returning home. "Jiang, stop wandering around so much. Your injuries haven't even fully healed yet. Your injuries haven't even fully healed yet." Shalicia tells their mother, "Mom, Shalicia tells their mother, some debt collectors came to our house, but Jiang handled them and chased them away." But Jiang hearing this, their mother becomes angry and says, "Just look at that bastard Yang." She's referring to her husband who borrowed money and then ran away. She's referring to her husband who borrowed money and then ran away. She looks toward Jiang. After saying that, she looks toward Jiang.
His aunt looks at him and says, "Son Jiang, you don't need to worry about any of this. We don't have to repay that loan. If those people come again, I'll deal with them myself." But Jiang replies to his aunt, "Aunt, that loan isn't a small amount of money. They won't just leave us alone like that. We're talking about 5 million rupees here. They won't let us go so easily." As soon as Shalisha and her mother hear the amount of the loan, they both become shocked. Seeing their expressions, Jiang quickly says, "Aunt, you really don't need to worry about this. I've already talked to those people. Once I become a proper player, I'll repay all of the debt myself." But when Jiang's aunt hears him say that he plans to become a player, she suddenly slams her hand on the table and says loudly, "No, you absolutely cannot become a player." She continues, "Your parents were also players, and they disappeared inside a dungeon." Hearing this, Jiang becomes confused and says, "What do you mean? You told me that my parents were normal people and that they died in an accident." His aunt sighs and says, "At that time you were only 1 year old, so we told you that story. But the truth is different." She continues, "This happened about 20 years ago. Your parents told me to take care of you for a while because they had to go somewhere important, but I already knew that the government had summoned them." She adds, "Normally players go into dungeons openly. There's no need to hide it. But for some reason, your parents kept it a secret." Her voice becomes softer as she says, "After that, they never came back. They remained missing for a very long time."
She continues, "Government officials later came to me and said that your parents had gone missing inside a dungeon." She looks at Jiang and says, "All these years, I never had the courage to tell you the truth. I was afraid that if you found out, you might choose the same path and become a player." Then she pleads, "Jiang, please listen to me. Don't become a player. It's extremely dangerous." She continues reassuring him, "And don't worry about the loan. I'll find a way to handle it somehow." After that, the conversation ends. That night, Jiang lies down in his bed trying to sleep, but he cannot fall asleep. He sits up and says to himself, "Who would have thought that my parents were actually players?" He continues thinking, "My aunt never told me the truth. If she had told me earlier that I would become a player one day, maybe things would have been different." He remembers that his aunt had tried many times to find information about his parents. But when she went to government offices, no one gave her any answers. It was as if the government was pretending that Jiang's parents had never existed. Jiang wonders, did they die inside that dungeon or something else happened? Suddenly, some painful memories from his childhood come back. He remembers how other children used to bully him, calling him an orphan. He shakes his head and says, "Forget those useless memories." He lies down again, still feeling restless. Then he notices Mang's card lying beside him. He picks it up and calls Mang. When Mang answers, Jiang says, "Mang, I heard that you're very good at collecting information. I want you to find information about an incident that happened 20 years ago where 2 people went missing inside a dungeon." Mang calmly replies, "All right, we can gather that information for you, but it will cost 200,000 yuan. He adds, "And if we fail to find accurate information, you'll still have to pay half of that amount." Jiang ends the call and mutters, "That guy really only cares about money." Then he sighs and says quietly, "Aunt, I'm sorry. I probably won't be able to keep the promise I made to you. I'm definitely going to become a player." Now we see another man somewhere else. His phone suddenly starts ringing. It's his boss calling him. The man answers the phone and says, "Hello, boss." His boss immediately starts shouting, "Do you have any idea what's going on? The new player examination for this season is starting on Monday." He continues angrily, "You better be fully prepared. If you don't find a strong new player for our guild this time, I'll kill you." The man calmly replies, "Don't worry, boss. This year I'll definitely bring you a very strong player." Now the story moves to Monday. We are shown the location where the new player examination is about to take place. Jiang has also arrived there to participate in the new player exam.
Jiang arrives at the place where the test for new players is being held. Looking at the crowd, he says to himself, "Wow, there's so many people here. I should probably ask someone for directions." He walks toward a man standing nearby and says, "Hello, handsome. Can you tell me where the new player examination is taking place?" At that moment, we see that this man was actually the same person who was talking to his boss earlier. When Jiang hears him calling him handsome, he looks at Jiang and says proudly, "Wow, you must be a genius. Look at that. I'm wearing such normal clothes today, yet you were still able to recognize my handsome charm." He continues dramatically, "Honestly, I tried really hard to dress normally today, but my natural handsomeness just can't be hidden." Jiang listens to all that and then calmly says again, "Hello, can you just tell me where the new player examination area is?" The man replies, "Oh, so you're here to take the new player exam this year." He points in a direction and says, "Just go that way. You'll see the entrance to the examination area." He continues explaining, "You probably already know that the new player examination only happens once every year. There will be a lot of people there. Just find the reception desk and fill out the form." Jiang replies, "Thanks, handsome." Then he leaves. The man watches Jiang leave and waves while saying, "Good luck." After Jiang walks away, the man mutters to himself, "That guy looked extremely weak, yet he still came here to take the exam? Honestly, most of the people this year probably look pretty weak too. I doubt I'll find anyone good." From now on, this man will be called Moji. At that moment, a car arrives and someone steps out of it. When Moji sees him, he says sarcastically, "Wow, who would have thought I'd run into someone like you here, a member of the Tiger Guild?"
He continues mocking him. "I heard your guild hasn't been doing very well lately. Didn't the dungeon you were responsible for collapse recently?" The dungeon he refers to was actually an A-rank dungeon. Because that dungeon collapsed, the guild suffered a huge loss. This also revealed something important. Jiang became a player using an A-rank awakening stone, and that stone was also an A-rank awakening stone. After hearing Moji's words, the man named Song becomes angry and says, "You should worry about your own guild instead. Your guild might collapse any time." Then he adds, "You're quite famous in Lee City. Why don't you just join our Song Jin guild? You'll have a much better future there." Moji immediately replies, "No thanks. I'm a normal human. I can't join a weird guild like yours." Hearing that, Song becomes furious and says, "Do you want to fight right now?" But before the argument escalates, another voice suddenly says, "That's enough. Both of you calm down." The moment this person speaks, they both feel an overwhelming pressure. They realize that this person is extremely powerful. We then see a man stepping forward. He is an S-rank player.
This guy is actually a rank A player, and his name is Ming. Ming is also the leader of the Lightning Thunder Guild. Ming looks at the two of them and says, "If you ask me, you two shouldn't be fighting right in front of the entrance gate of the player association. Both of you are guild members, and causing trouble here will only create a bad impression. There are many people here from different guilds who came to recruit new players, so you should control yourselves for now." Right after this, the scene shifts to another location. Now we see Jiang, who has just arrived at the reception area. The receptionist registers him and tells him that his profession has been recorded as warrior. She hands him a number badge and says, "Attach this number to yourself. If you go a little further from here, you'll reach the exam area." Jiang happily heads toward the exam area. But suddenly, a notification appears in front of him. The system informs him that he hasn't collected his bonus points for a long time. Because of this, the system gives him a punishment and deducts 50 luck points from his stats. Seeing this, Jiang is completely shocked. He says, "How is that even possible? What is this?" He reads the notification carefully, but complains, "This system is crazy." At that moment, an announcement echoes through the area. Everyone is informed that the new players of this generation should immediately head to the exam area because the examination is about to begin. After hearing this, Jiang calms himself and says, "All right, for now I should just go to the exam area. I shouldn't overthink this." While walking, Jiang starts thinking that maybe losing 50 luck points isn't such a big deal. He assumes that his maximum luck might be around 1,000, so losing 50 points shouldn't cause too many problems. Soon, he reaches the exam area. But as he enters, his foot accidentally hits a stone, and he trips forward, falling face first onto another rock. Inside the exam area, another player notices him falling and immediately says, "Oh my God, bro, are you okay? Did you get hurt?" Jiang quickly stands up and replies, No, I'm fine." But in his mind, he thinks that if he hadn't invested so many attribute points into strength, he might have been seriously injured just now. At that moment, a white-haired guy speaks to Jiang and says, "Well, if you're okay, then hurry up and stand properly. The exam is about to begin." He then adds that he still doesn't understand what kind of examination they're going to face. Another guy standing nearby says, "There's no need to worry about that. As long as our examiner isn't Holly, everything will be fine." Hearing this, Jiang asks them, "Wait, you guys just mentioned someone named Holly. Who is she, and why don't you want her to be the examiner?" The white-haired guy looks at him and says, "You came here to take the Player Association exam, but you didn't even do basic research? Fine, I'll explain. Inside Lee City's Player Association, there are 3 Rank A magician examiners. The first is Bank the Silent Walker. The second is Thriller Youngline. And the third is Holly Mukduwen. One of these 3 will randomly become the examiner for the next round of the recruitment test." Another guy joins the conversation and explains that the first 2 examiners are pretty normal people. Since the participants are just beginners, those examiners usually go easy on them. But Holly is different. Jiang asks, "Different?" The guy replies that Holly is basically a pervert. Hearing this, Jiang becomes a little surprised and says,
So you mean she's the type of hunter who keeps people around just to beat them up and enjoy herself? The white-haired guy sighs and says, "You're not completely wrong, but the real problem is that Holly is extremely strict. Normally, when the examination happens, around 50 participants take part in the test. Out of them, about 40 usually pass, and only 10 fail. But if Holly becomes the examiner, the situation completely flips. Only 10 people manage to pass, while everyone else fails. From this point onward, we'll identify these two guys by their hair color. The white-haired guy will be called White, and the black-haired guy will be called Black. Black then looks at Jiang and says, "The last time I took this exam, Holly was my instructor. I just hope my luck isn't so bad that she becomes my instructor again this time."
Black continues speaking and says that if Holly really becomes the examiner, then it means his luck is unbelievably terrible. Hearing this, Jiang starts thinking about his own situation. Earlier today, his luck stat had already been reduced by 50 points, and now he feels worried. He mutters to himself, "I have a bad feeling. Our luck probably isn't going to help us today." At that moment, one of the players walks up to a staff member and asks, "Excuse me, can you tell us why the examiner hasn't arrived yet? When is the exam going to start?" Other people nearby begin complaining as well. "Yeah, the exam should have already started 5 minutes ago. What's going on? Why is there a delay?" The staff girl tries to calm them down and says, "Don't worry, the examiner will arrive soon. The exam will begin shortly." At that moment, we see Holly standing above the exam arena, watching everything from a higher platform. She looks down at the crowd and says with a playful tone, "Look at them. My cute little students can't even wait a few minutes." Right after saying that, she jumps down directly into the exam arena. As soon as everyone sees her, they immediately realize something terrible. This year's examiner is Holly. Holly looks at all the players and says with a mischievous smile, "So, are you all ready, my cuties? Ready to receive my lovely teaching?" When Black sees Holly, his face turns pale. He panics and says, "How is my luck this bad? How can Holly end up being my examiner twice?" Meanwhile, Jiang watches from the side and thinks quietly, "Sorry, bro, this might actually be my fault, not yours." At that moment, White tries to encourage everyone. He says, "Why are you all so scared? She's just Holly. As players, we should always give our 100% no matter what kind of situation we face." But while saying this, White suddenly gets a nosebleed because he can't stop staring at Holly. Black immediately notices this and says, "I can clearly see where your focus is right now, and trust me, it's definitely in the wrong place." Right after this, the scene shifts. Now we're shown auditorium room number 3. Inside the auditorium, several people are watching the exam area through a magical screen. One man looks at the candidate with number 1 and says, "That first candidate looks pretty good. His potential doesn't seem bad at all." Inside the same room, Jiang is also present. When the man notices Jiang, he asks, "What are you doing here?" Then he continues explaining, "That number 1 candidate you see there is actually a member of the Chuan family. My guild leader has already talked with the Chuan family. Once he passes the exam and officially becomes a player, he will join our guild. My guild leader has already offered him a very generous amount of money, so don't even think about recruiting him for your guild." Hearing this, another person replies calmly, "Who cares? He's just a kid, and besides, we're not even sure if he'll pass the exam." Another man joins the conversation and says, "If this exam continues like this, won't it become boring? I think we should make a bet." The first man asks, "A bet? What kind of bet?" The other man raises his hand and shows a shining crystal. This is a spiritual crystal. It weighs 2 kilograms and is worth 200,000. I was planning to give it to the Chuan family as a gift if their kid passed the exam and officially became a player. He smirks and continues, "But here's the bet. If that kid fails the exam or runs into even a little trouble, this spiritual crystal will be yours. But if he passes easily and ranks at the very top, then you'll have to bark like a dog 3 times. The other man immediately agrees. Fine, the bet is on. Meanwhile, the scene returns to the exam arena. Jiang is standing among the other participants. Holly begins explaining the rules of the exam. She says,
All right, everyone, let me explain this year's test. For the next 30 minutes, I will continuously attack all of you. Your goal is simple: survive. You have many options. You can face my attacks head-on, dodge them, run away, crouch, or even try to counterattack me. But you must survive for the full 30 minutes. She continues explaining the failure conditions. If you become unconscious after my attacks, or if you cross the boundary line of the training area, you will be disqualified immediately. That's all the rules. Right after finishing the explanation, Holly signals the staff girl. The staff girl then activates a perception magic spell. As soon as the magic spreads across the entire arena, the atmosphere completely changes. The pressure in the exam area suddenly becomes heavy and intense. Jiang immediately feels that something around him has changed. He turns towards Black and says, "I think I just felt something strange pass me by." Black reassures Jiang and says, "Don't worry, that was perception magic. If even the smallest thing changes inside the arena, the system will immediately detect it." At that moment, Holly claps her hands and says, "All right, everyone, let's begin." She raises her hand and casts a spell into the air. Suddenly, magic blasts start raining down across the battlefield. Explosions begin hitting the ground everywhere. Magic missiles fly in all directions toward the participants. Everyone immediately starts running to avoid the attacks. White tries to dodge the magic missiles with style, confidently moving around the battlefield. Meanwhile, Black quickly casts a spell and creates a large stone wall in front of him to block the attacks. White notices this and immediately starts shouting, "Hey, referee, look over here. Someone is cheating. This guy just created a wall and is hiding behind it. And wait, how is he even using magic? Isn't he supposed to be a warrior-type player?" Black calmly responds, "You shouldn't judge someone just by their appearance. I've been a magician for over 30 years. If you want, you can also hide behind my wall. You'll be safe here." At the same time, Jiang runs toward the stone wall. "I'm coming over," he shouts. While running, Jiang thinks to himself that he invested a lot of attribute points into strength, so all he needs to do is focus on his legs and use that strength to move quickly. With that thought, he makes a powerful jump toward the wall. For a moment, he feels proud of himself, but suddenly a magic missile flies directly toward his back and hits him. Jiang crashes to the ground. White looks at him and says, "Did that guy just die from that attack?" Black shakes his head. "No, he's fine, but for some reason he's crying." Soon after, Jiang manages to crawl behind the stone wall where the other two are hiding. The three of them take cover together. Jiang looks around at the chaos and says, "I finally understand something. This place isn't an exam at all. This is a battlefield." Explosions continue happening everywhere around them. Then Black suggests, "Shouldn't we just go to the appraisal crystal instead? If we pour our power into it, it will measure our strength. Wouldn't that be much easier?" While Black says this, Jiang starts imagining something like solo leveling, where players simply measure their power through crystals. Seeing Jiang's expression, Black says, "Don't tell me you think you're some kind of Sung Jin Woo. Have you been reading too many comics?" Jiang quickly waves his hands and says, No, I didn't mean it like that. But don't you think it would be easier if we just touched a crystal that shows our rank and strength? Why throw us directly into a battlefield like this?" Black sighs and then asks him a question. "Let me ask you something. When players awaken, they receive a profession. There are 3 main professions: warrior, ranger, and magician. Now tell me, how do you measure the strength of people from these completely different professions?" Jiang replied, "Well, wouldn't their rank be measured by the awakening stone they received when they became players?" White immediately interrupts him. "That's a very shallow way of thinking." Black then explains further. "This exam exists to measure our true combat ability in a real battlefield situation." He continues explaining, "The awakening stone is just like a weapon. If someone has a high-grade awakening stone, it's like having a powerful weapon. But imagine giving a beginner a powerful weapon. That doesn't mean they can actually fight well. A rookie might miss all their attacks or fail to deal real damage. So even if someone has powerful armor or high defense abilities, they might still die in a real battle. That's why a player's true rank is measured through real survival instincts and combat ability, not just through a crystal. He finishes by saying, if we judged everyone only by the awakening stone, many people would look strong on paper, but would be completely useless in real combat. While they're talking, White suddenly looks nervous and says, wait, why do I feel like this wall you created is about to break? Black confidently replies, that's impossible. I built this wall with extremely strong magic.
As long as the level of the first round isn't too high, this wall won't break. But suddenly, White looks to the side and becomes shocked. He sees a huge number of attacks coming directly toward them. White quickly shouts, wait, can your wall actually block this level of firepower? After hearing this, Black also peeks from the side to check. The moment he looks, he becomes completely shocked. A massive number of magic missiles are flying straight toward their stone wall. Within seconds, all those magic bullets slam directly into the wall. Black panics and says, what is going on? How can there be this much firepower in the very first round? Meanwhile, the exam staff is observing everything using perception magic. One of the staff members notices something strange. She says, it looks like the examiner concentrated a huge amount of firepower in one direction. Many participants have already been eliminated because of that. But Holly immediately responds, no, that's not what I did. She explains, I never controlled the fire bullets from the beginning. They're automatically being attracted towards something. Meanwhile, behind the wall, Black looks worried and says to White, bro, what exactly is happening to us? Why are these attacks targeting us like we're some kind of boss monsters? White nervously replies, could it be that we somehow offended Holly? Black instantly answers, well, you were staring at her with those weird eyes earlier. White becomes even more nervous. Wait, are you saying all of this is just happening because of that? Meanwhile, Jiang is quietly sitting beside them listening to their conversation. Inside his head, he's feeling extremely troubled. He already knows the truth. The fire bullets are actually moving randomly, but since his luck stat dropped earlier, all the random bad events are now being pulled toward him. Jiang sighs for frustration and thinks, so basically all the unlucky things in this system are targeting me right now.